Welcome to our Tuesday tea. I'm your host, Vanessa.
And I'm your co-host, Charisse.
Now let's have some tea.
Or wine.
Cheers! Hey dolls, welcome back to another episode of our Tuesday tea. Today we'll be going over boundaries. So I think this is a good episode, definitely a much needed episode. I think with anything in life, love relationships, personal, family, every kind of friendships, I feel like any kind of relationship, you always have to have certain boundaries that you have to respect. So in this episode today, we're going to cover what those boundaries are, what they look like, and our experiences with boundaries that we've had to either put in place, or boundaries that just weren't working in our relationships, and what determined, sometimes if certain boundaries are crossed, it really will call for having to quit or end a relationship completely. So even in families at times.
Yeah, not just our own boundaries that we make, but other people's boundaries that we had to either learn or respect as well. It goes both ways. Everybody has their own set of boundaries, and sometimes even being the other person, you have your boundaries, and we can't, not everyone can be right all the time, and you have to respect other people's
respecting other people's boundaries too. I think that's like a big part of it as well. But I think I guess to start, what are boundaries? I think
the definition of boundaries.
Yeah, a boundary is basically like a box, right? Or like a line or something that we make that we want to. It's like how emotionally, for me, I guess it's how it could mean how close you let someone emotionally get to you, right? Like those boundaries, but it can also mean where you draw the line in a relationship, so it's kind of like two different perspectives on boundaries.
For me, it's like a reflection of who you are, like your rules, your guidelines, your principles that you set for yourself. And like she said, when people cross this, that's when problems they arise in friendships, family, relationships, and that's when you need to be able to have a conversation or converse about your boundaries.
Yeah, and then it's also too what are you willing to accept, and what are things that are just and that's what I had written down too, where there's 7 boundaries, right? So there's 7 different boundaries. I'm sure there's probably more. But I think the basic and probably the most important or fundamental ones are, I had wrote down my non-negotiable as the last boundary, where I feel like non-negotiable boundaries should probably be first. And those are boundaries that you're just not willing to negotiate. I guess, for instance, smoking. Let's say, you're a person that doesn't smoke, and you will not be with a person that does smoke. That could be a non-negotiable, or, it could be anything, I just smoking. But, that could be a non-negotiable where it's I'm sorry, that's just something I can't negotiate with. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to try, if you're in a relationship, let's say with a significant other, and the person's well, I'm going to try to quit. And you're all right, well, they're going to try to quit, so this could potentially work out. You're really falling for or trying to date the potential of that person. You're not really dating them for who they are at that moment. So
exactly,
I feel like non-negotiables is probably one of the most important boundaries to put in place.
And it's so crazy that you said non-negotiable boundaries, and it's boundaries for me took a long time to know what they were, or to put them in place, or try to put them in place, or even know what my boundaries were.
Identifying them, because we didn't even put them or use them.
So there was nothing that was non-negotiable. It was, if they wanted to do that, then I went along with it, even if it made me uncomfortable, because it made them comfortable and didn't want to, cause any drama or fighting or anything like that. So also with boundaries, sometimes they take a long time to even realize what your boundaries are, or to even be strong enough to put your boundaries in place. And I think that also comes with age, and it comes with experiences, because I don't know if it's just women, but I know as women we tend to bend a lot. when it comes to our boundaries.
Yeah, I think that's why when you said like when we get older and wiser, and I feel like the better you get to know yourself and really wholeheartedly and truly love yourself, then you're like, you know what, I'm not willing to, like, this is what I believe in. And just like if you're with someone, you have to respect what they believe in or what they're not willing to accept or not accept. And that's when you get more comfortable putting those boundaries in place and saying like, look, this is where I stand, this is how I feel about this, and it's okay for me to feel that way. But I think like for people like us, well, I know like for me speaking, growing up, sometimes you become so much of like a people pleaser because you just want to make people, and I went through this a lot too, you just want to make people around you happy, that then that's when it's like, okay, well, if this is going to make that person, just like you said, at times it made you uncomfortable, but you did it just to make that person happy. And then you start realizing like your self-worth, and you start realizing like, no, I deserve what I wholeheartedly believe in. I don't need to sit here and take this when it makes me, just like you wouldn't, like if it's your partner and let's say your partner didn't like something that, you know, you love to do, you're not going to sit there and force them to feel that, you know. So if it's something that's like non-negotiable, I think you kind of know right then and there it won't work, you know. Exactly. It won't work. Another one was physical. So like physical boundaries, which I kind of put sexual after that, but I feel like that for me, that kind of like ties into play like with both certain boundaries. Like there's certain things that, you know, you're willing to do or not do in bed. Like
I do get that there are sexual boundaries, but that's again where the boundary of communication. That's a big one for me, like communication. Like I need for you to be able to talk to me about anything, like you know, be able to express yourself, your feelings, like your emotions. And I know for a lot of people it's a hard thing to do, to be able to tell you everything that, I don't know, may hurt your feelings,
or is bothering you, or like, you know, or you know, it's so funny because it's like when you enjoy something or you like something, it's easy to express, and it's like the things that you don't like have to be discussed as well, but it's always harder for people.
But that's what, you know, that's part of a relationship.
Exactly.
You need to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations about things that are bothering you, because exactly it starts to take a toll on the relationship. So like you need to be able to talk. Like if the person really cares for you and, you know, loves you or wants to get to know you more or stay with you, they're gonna be accepting to whatever it is that you have to tell them or say.
I think boundaries, something like this, should be discussed like early on in a relationship. Obviously not when you're dating. I mean, you can talk about those things and touch on those things if you're looking to go for, if you know like, okay, I'm dating at this time because I want to move forward, like I want to marry someone, or, you know, you see a future with the person that you're dating. Then obviously I'm sure there's boundaries and such that you're going to discuss, because even in dating there's boundaries. There's the, like I said, the physical and sexual. Then there's also the emotional and mental. You know, so there's those boundaries that you have to talk about.
Mental.
So so that's a big one too. And I feel like an example of that would be, I had brought this up in the Rooted episode, where it was like just discussion. Like my stepfather, most loving person, loves his girls more than anything, but his deliverance of, you know, trying to like reprimand us when we were younger, or even, you know, just saying things like calling, like, oh, you're so stupid sometimes, or something like that. And I know like to some people might not be a huge deal, but it is. And something like that to me would be emotional or mental boundaries, you know, like,
crossing the boundary of, you know, that's
what like, I know joking around sometimes, like you could say stuff like that, but I think for me that's like a big one of like, just the how would you view like the emotional and like mental boundaries in a relationship?
It's more like with the like mental boundaries is like, it's same as a mental abuse. Like it's a boundary, like being toxic, or, you know,
and that's something we've both have had experience
lots
with,
of
so
like being narcissistic and manipulative,
yes.
Like what people call it now, gaslighting, like like talking to you a certain way and telling you things and going about it in a different way. Like that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
So and that's another big thing. It's like respect. That is a big, huge boundary. Like, I'm a respectful person. If I'm respecting you, I want the same respect back. There's no reason for me to be giving you all this respect and, you know, and I don't get it in return. So for me, that's a big one that I know a lot of people have problems with, because that then also goes along with being toxic. You know, a lot of toxic people are really not respectful at all.
And then another we have is religious and the spiritual. And I know that one thing that I will not negotiate is someone's belief in God. Obviously, I don't go to church every week. I'm not there like I should be, especially because I have children. I feel like it's important to have them in that environment. You know, I want them to grow up with that same foundation that I had, which is why they did go to like a private Christian-based Montessori. So they got Bible study. But with me, with my grandmother, that's something like if someone doesn't believe in God at all, I don't, you know, obviously I don't judge anyone who doesn't. Everyone has a right to feel what they want. But as far as like me in my relationship and raising my children and what they're going to see and be affected by growing up, I don't want them to be around someone that just doesn't believe at all.
Yeah.
That would make me really uncomfortable.
And as she knows, it's the same for me. My mom raised the same way. She's, you know, very godly, spiritual. She, same thing, taught how to pray. I've been going to Sunday school since I'm 6. We used to live in a town where I was small enough to be able to walk with my little cousin to our family church at the time. And every Sunday, you know, I would go meet my grandmother at the church. Me and my cousin would go downstairs into the Sunday school area, and the kids would be downstairs getting the word of God, and then we would go upstairs and meet up with my grandmother and finish the day of church. And I went through that my whole life, like going to church and Bible study and everything like that. And
even now for us, we've been trying, I think for like 3 years now, or like 4, we've been trying to get into a Bible study group at our one of the churches that we attend. I belong to it. She belongs to a different church, but we always have attended my church, like, you know, when we can together. So we've been trying to do a class there forever. And I think the one time we tried to do the class, I was in school, so it interfered with my class. Then COVID happened. And now we're trying again to do one there. But just trying to be more involved in the church.
To be with someone that believes in God.
And it's not like they don't have to be like someone that goes, or even, they don't even have to be raised the same way. But just the fact that you believe, you know that there's some bigger, higher power.
Yeah, they have that respect for
and
God.
The respect for, exactly, 1,000%.
So that's definitely a non-negotiable.
Yeah, that's a big boundary. And then there is financial and material boundaries. That's pretty important, like when you're seriously involved
already.
With someone. And I feel like that's something I guess I could look back on, and it's so funny because I don't even realize that until reading as we're doing this. And I'm thinking like, that's something that I never clearly put in. And I think that's so important that, you know, I think there's like 2 or 3 things like couples argue the most about, and one of the main ones is finances. And I think it's important to have boundaries and limitations on what both, or just clear understandings of what each one brings to the table, of what one's going to offer, how, you know, if one's going to spend X amount of, you know, just that's something
that's definitely something more, because it's a sensitive conversation.
It is, right?
So that's something that you definitely would have with that person later on in the relationship, after you have your foundation. You start with a foundation and you build on that foundation when you're in a relationship. And when it comes to finances, it's a very touchy situation. So that's something that you have to speak about when you're ready to have that conversation, when you know the person is not going to be like take offense to it or be defensive. So that is something that is definitely a boundary. But
definitely do it before you like get engaged or anything like
not
that.
Far
because I feel like that's where sometimes people go wrong. It's like, oh, okay, well, you know, we're making it work now, but definitely have like clear understandings of it. I think what I've been thinking, well, I mean, I don't know, but when you're getting serious in a relationship, you know that you're going to be getting married or living together, you know, that whole separate bank accounts, the joint bank account, and the like saving, the joint like savings. But I definitely believe in that, and I believe in like both the husband and the wife both having like their own bank accounts, like your own spending money, your own thing, but then also saving together, and then that joint account. I think that's so important, which is something that like in the past I never really like implemented in my serious relationships.
With the financial.
Yeah. And then and time boundaries. This was a big one for me with time. Yeah, that's a big one for me, because I think I don't remember what episode I touched on that, but I remember talking about it where I was saying it became like almost like a codependent relationship, where it was like you always had to be together, and we couldn't be apart. Like yes, like, and that's obviously, as we know, like very unhealthy. It's not healthy, and there should be those boundaries of where, okay, our time together, but then we also have our time apart. What does your partner like doing? Does he enjoy going to the gym? Okay, that's his time. Like, that when he's going to the gym, that's his time, or a priority, or whatever it is, hobbies, things he likes to do. There are things we as women like to do, but that should be respected. You should both, not one party should feel bad about saying, I want to go to the gym today. Hey, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to see my friends. Like, as long as one is not taking advantage of it over the other, where it's like, okay, I'm going to see my friends, and you're gone all the time, and your significant other's left home. That's not fair. But respect, in a respectful manner. But time boundaries, I think that's become such a huge one for me.
Yeah, and that was it's usually a pretty difficult one for me, because I'm the one that's always left the one home. So not spending time with friends, but the other person gets to spend time with friends, and then when you go to spend time with friends, it's a problem. Like, it should be equal both ways. Like, you should be able to spend time with your friends, you should be able to spend time with your family. You don't need to always spend time together, because then that's where the relationship starts to break apart. You need time apart to miss each other, to have conversations with other people, to be able to have conversations with your significant other when you see them. You need your own identity. Like, when you're always around them, you lose yourself, you forget who you are, what you like, you just become a different person.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you almost even develop like resentment towards the person, because
you start to see who you are, and you start to realize the reason why you are, the changes that you made, usually it's not for the better. You start to resent them because you blame it on them.
And then you lose yourself in the process too. It's almost like you don't remember who you are or recognize who you are anymore.
It's your identity. It's like no one should be able to or want to take that from you.
Yeah. And it's crazy, right? Like, even getting older now, it's like when you think about being in a relationship and your partner, it's like you want them to be happy, right? Like, you care about that person. Like, I mean, you would hope so. Why are you in the relationship? But it's like, I guess when you're in a younger mindset, or you just really don't care, it's all like me. But then as you get older, it's like you want the people that you love and the people you're surrounded by, you want them to be happy too, And I think that's one of my things. It's like, I just want everyone to be happy, and that's kind of like, I know that doesn't always work out that way.
It's like you just want to keep the peace. You just want to be peaceful. You just want to be, just have a peaceful home environment, like be able to just, and that's true as we get older. Like, when we're younger, it's like you like that drama, you like that, like that feistiness, and but as you get older, you're just like
you want nothing to do with it.
It's like, what for?
And even when it is, because obviously you're always going to argue, you're going to have like disagreements, but even when that happens, it's like, all right, how can we like talk this through? I don't even have that. You don't even have the energy to argue, or
it's like, what exactly? It's like, why are we arguing about this? Why can't we just have a conversation about it? And that's what I feel about everything, that when it comes to boundaries, communication is wrapped around
Yes, yep, and that's true too. And I think I've noticed in myself, as I've gotten older and then more have been able to really put boundaries in place, that's when it's been easier to communicate, because you're just like, it's not, you almost look at it as like, it's not a big deal. This is just kind of like what's right and what's wrong, right? So to you, it comes natural. So it's very easy to express those boundaries or whatever it is you're feeling to your partner. Whereas when you're younger, you look at it as like, oh, you can't, like an argument, like you're causing an argument or trying to like start something.
Or being disrespectful, or, you know.
And then you almost have like this fear.
Yes.
Like you're scared.
And then, which then you get into a fight because they've instilled like fear and for you to be able to have a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm. Which just goes to show that it's not the right relationship to be in.
It's an immaturity.
Yeah, it takes maturity. But it's like, all right, when you're in like your 30s and you're still going through that, it's kind of like, all right, you should be kind of like crossing that bridge by that point.
Yeah, by that time it's like,
It's never too late though. I shouldn't say that because it is never too late. Better late than never, my grandma always says.
Yes.
Every time I'm running late to something, she's like, better late than never. And I remember I used to get so mad because I'm like, I just don't want to be late. I'm like, what do you mean better late than never? Like, and now I get it. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense.
Exactly.
But yeah, and then so I wrote down those 7. I had physical, sexual, emotional, and mental. To me, that's kind of like the same. I feel like emotional and mental for me. And then spiritual, religious, financial, material, time, and then the last one I had written down was non-negotiable. But I feel like I said, I feel like that's probably the first one. As a child growing up, there were definitely those clear-cut boundaries, like by my parents, that were set, like very clear. And then, like I said, as I got older, I think because I was such a like just people pleaser, I didn't know boundaries, and I don't think, not only did I not implement them in my relationships, but I didn't even respect the person I was with. If they had, like, I really didn't care to respect their boundaries as well. So that really didn't come until later on, I would say.
Same for me. I didn't even know what boundaries were to even ask, or even ask the other person that I'm with what their boundaries were, or even to know what it wasn't a conversation, it wasn't a thing, like to make boundaries or to have rules, or you just went with the flow of the relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing. And I remember with my daughter though, once I had her, I think one of the first major boundaries I told her, between me and her, lies. Do not lie to me. She'll tell you this to this day. Do not lie to me. I do not like lies. There's no reason for you
there's nothing
lie.
that you can say that's gonna change how I feel about you.
Yeah, it's like I need to be able to back you
disappointed,
up.
probably, or maybe, depending on the situation. But
don't lie. I need to be able to back you up in any situation. I need you to tell me the truth. I need to be able to help you or guide you, through whatever you're going through. So you need to tell me the truth. Just don't lie to me. And that goes it goes into relationships too. Like, why do you just don't lie to me? Because it's just gonna cause an issue.
And then you just don't really trust the person either. And it's like,
another
that's why I hate when it's like these stupid little lies that go over stupid stuff. Because then I sit there and I'm like, well, if you just lied about that stupid thing, like, who's to say you're not gonna lie about bigger things?
And why would you lying? Like, you only lies to me. It's like only you lie to somebody that you're afraid of. Like, I'm not. Only person I'm afraid of is Jesus.
You think so? You think that people only lie to people that they're afraid of?
Yeah, because I feel like you're gonna get in trouble for something. Like you're holding something. You're lying because if I tell the truth, there's something's gonna happen. Just
see, and it's so funny how like we all like perceive things differently. Because I'm like, well, if someone's lying to me, I feel like they think they can get away with it. They think like, okay, I can lie to her, like I'll get away with this. So it's like, why are you playing me like for a fucking fool? Like that's how my mind always goes.
Because it's easier to tell a lie. Because
exactly, yeah.
Afraid of what the repercussions.
And it's hysterical to me because like when people lie, right? And this is just like generally speaking over anything, like people when you lie, like you don't really remember the lie. So it's like then when you like the truth will always come out later, and then it's like, oh shit, like you don't remember.
Whatever happens in the dark always comes to the light,
right?
You just gotta sit and wait. It's like it's gonna come out.
Yeah.
So just do yourself a favor and just don't lie.
Yeah, I know sometimes like saying the truth, depending on what it is, and this could go like so many different ways. I know sometimes it's harder because some people do it because they don't want to hurt another person's feelings.
Yes.
But I feel like in the end, if that person finds out that it was a lie or finds out like that's why you did it, you only just made things worse. And I feel like when you do just are upfront and honest and you can say the truth about something, the the friend or whatever is they respect you so much more. That's the only way you're going to be real, raw, and honest with some, you know, a friend or whoever it is. You know, it's not like, it comes to a point where it's not about hurting feelings anymore. I think like friends and relationships can differentiate of like, okay, you're saying something to be mean or hurt my feelings, or like saying it because it comes from a place of love. But boundaries, I think that's like a big, it's a big topic. It's so important. And then, so that's like more so, that's more so like love, significant other relationships. But then when you bring it into like family and friends, and I feel like even with family it's different and friends it's different, because I feel like with family, and this is just speaking for myself, I know everyone can, you know, do it differently. I'm the type of person, I don't care if you are blood, if you're toxic or, you know, there's just no give and take there where like I'm giving, and you're just taking. There's never like you reaching out or you looking for me or asking out. I'm not gonna do that either, you know, so I don't care if you're blood or family. Toxic is toxic, so therefore I can easily remove myself. However, when it comes to family, if that family member were to ever reach back out to me and, you know, be able to say, hey, let's have an honest conversation and let's, you know, I'm sorry about XYZ, or can we talk about this? I am like more than willing, unless you've, you know, done something completely horrible to my children or myself, but I'm more than willing to like sit there and talk with someone, you know, a family member. But I don't believe in like, oh, well, you're blood, you have to, no, I'm sorry.
Me either. I'm the same way, no matter where in the family dynamic you are. If you're the same thing, if you're a bad person and you're just not bringing good into my life, and everything you do is negative and toxic, I don't want anything to do with you until, not per se become a better person, but until you see how you've been towards most likely me, and you want to have a conversation about it and be like, whatever, explain yourself on this is why I acted this way, this is what I was going through, or something like that, because I'm always willing to listen and then take it from there.
And then it's with friends too, so then it goes into friends. And I think with friends, like same thing, you have to be, I mean, I guess it's a little easier to cut friends off. I think depending on how long I've been friends with the person, I think if a friend were to disrespect me, I don't know that I'd be so willing and open to like, you know, then later be like, okay, we could talk this out, depending, but it also depends on what it was about or what, you know, like what happened. But it's tricky. I think it's harder when it comes to friends because it's so easy to then cut them off and then never speak to them again.
And then also I feel like with friends, when they do something disrespectful and you take them back as a friend, you feel like they're just going to do something disrespectful again.
It's harder. It's harder
with family.
To trust them.
It's easier to take back or talk to with a family member than
I think too, because with friends, more boundaries can be crossed, you know, more just like family members, then again, who knows, but, you know, don't cross or don't disrespect a person. I mean, and like I said, it depends on what, you know, what the situation is or what the topic is or, you know, the reason for a disagreement or what have you. But yeah, I mean, I've had, you know, best friends that I grew up with for so many years and, you know, I don't talk to anymore. And it sucks because it's almost like you build this family dynamic relationship with, and sometimes you're even closer to them than your own family because you're spending time with this person, you know, and you're probably telling them more than you're telling maybe a sister or a cousin or whatever, what have you, because you're able to trust and confide in them and get advice. So when you have that for so many years and then you start to see someone for what they really are, which is so funny, you know, parents really do know best, because I'll never forget a certain friend. I haven't been friends with this person for forever, so no one will be able to put any names, but you know, my mother, you know, our parents always warn us, like, watch out for that one, watch out. And I just remember I used to roll my eyes, and just my mother, you know, and my mother had a lot of friends of mine that she really did love and care for, but there was, you know, maybe like 2 friends, that she was just like, I'm telling you, they're bad news, Never listened to her. I mean, I stayed friends forever. And then, you know, years later, you start to see things for what they really are and realize it just sucked for me because my mom was gone, long gone before I realized that she was right about so many things. But yeah, you know, I wound up finding out the hard way. But the friends that are really true friends, and that's the beauty of it all. And I actually realized this recently too. So just get her. You're able to sit and talk with your friends just like you would if it's your best friend. Like, you should feel so comfortable talking to them. Like, I just had to do this recently, you know, where I just opened up with a friend and just, you know, kind of like opened up about things that I wanted to talk to her about on a personal level. And it was so easy. Like, it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't, I think when you have that dynamic between two friends, like, it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be hard. So if it is uncomfortable, it's either you still have like growing to do, because like I said, it isn't until we find like our true self-love or self-worth that, is the camera dying?
It's something just clicked. It was like bling.
You know, that we actually are able to easily express our boundaries. I think then it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, when it's a friend that that you trust, and that's another thing that helps to make it easier. And a friend that you know you can fully talk to, that's not going to get offended or defensive. They're going to take the criticism that you give them, you know, not to the, you know, like in a bad way.
Yeah.
And usually those type of friends that you're able to do that with is friends that are now family.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
So then that's what makes it so much easier, because you look at them as, you know, a part of your family, and that's what you do with family.
It's that genuine love that, you know, you really like, you care for that person just like you care if it was like your sister or, you know, someone close to you.
Exactly.
So, but boundaries are important. I feel like that flew by.
I agree. Yes, it did. It's because it's such a topic that we understand and have
know
a lot
how
of experience in it.
Yes, and how important it is now. Well, it's always important, but I think now we finally implemented it to where it's like, okay, this is something that has to be done.
Exactly.
And it just makes life so much easier.
It does.
Because you can, you know, from early on, you know, okay, this is something that's not going to work or is going to work. And I think just making your point, like your, where you stand clear from day one with people saves problems and time later on.
Yeah, and like I said before, that it takes time to know that. It takes time to be able to see it for what it is, that red flag for what it is, and be able to cut it off and not hold on to it and hope for it to change. It's like, it takes, you know, being an adult and a lot of maturity for you to be able to just cut that off.
Yeah, maturity, and that's definitely what it comes down to too. You need that before you can even try to figure out what your boundaries are and what you need to do.
Yes.
But all right, loves, we will see you for our next episode. Please don't forget to like, rate. I know we've done pretty good with our like ratings and reviews on, I think it was Apple. So if you could please like just go give us a review, or if you don't want to write a review, you could always just rate with stars, an honest review, and we'd really, really appreciate it. Bye guys. Till next time.
Love,
Cheers.
light, peace, V, and C.